When we were first applying for the CEFA grant, I did their kind of logic model process, and I found that really valuable because often we kind of get caught up in the things we're going to do, and sometimes see that as the end goal is like, oh, we're going to run the garden cart for 16 weeks, and we're going to have gone 50 farm field trips, but is that really the outcome we're looking for? No, we want kids to be healthier and happier and know where their food comes from and know their farmer and eat the food, and those are really the things we want. We want to reduce obesity, we want to increase food security, like that's what we care about. And so just I think making that distinction between the things that you're doing and what that means for the people that you're serving is an important piece of evaluation. And then the other piece of it is that you have to be realistic about what things you can change and what things you can't change and what you can take credit for. So if our end goal is to reduce obesity, we can't really say that our Farm to School program reduced obesity, but we can deduct from studies that people have done that kids who eat more fruits and vegetables have less likely to become obese, and we can say that we're contributing toward that. But we're not going to say, in our grant proposal that we're going to have a 10% reduction in obesity for the kids that we're working with, because that just, that doesn't really fly. So, yeah. So
would you, the initial survey question, or the statement was we're going to increase the number of servings of fruits and vegetables that our population will improve by 10%. So that was your statement. We're going to look for 10% improvement in the number of servings they eat per annum per school year. And at the end of the year, you asked that question. How many servings did you have at the beginning? How many servings after?
We don't actually, that question, our Harvest of the Month survey is about their preference. So, do you like this vegetable? And then after you've learned about it and you've tasted it, now do you like this vegetable? And that's where we had the 10% increase in preference for that fruit or vegetable. That doesn't say anything about how many servings of that fruit or vegetable or any other that they're having.
What I was looking at is that if you're going to tie to a reduction in obesity, the number of servings of fruits or vegetables that increases is going to reduce the potential, as you suggested. And that would be a nice data point.
Exactly, and then you can point to another study that says, and I included some in this thing for you.
Is that realistic, or is it better to go with preferences?
So
as we're emerging.
We started surveying third graders. In our initial survey, it's like, oh, how many times are you eating vegetables a week? And I don't know if I could accurately answer how many times I'm eating vegetables a week. And if I'm 9 years old, I don't know. It's hard to really take that data very seriously. And so the preference thing, even though it's a little more wily, it feels a little more honest because you can say, okay, did you like it before? Do you like it now? And you can see it. Yeah?
I have a curiosity about their perception as to why they liked it before and they don't now, or vice versa. I remember as a kid, not wanting to touch eggplant because of the name. And so, really, that's where they're coming from. They're, they're impressed. They're so impressionable, and the name, just as the name or the way it looks, certainly the way it smells is going to have effect on their taste. But what kinds of different perceptions are playing into their impressions of fruits and vegetables and the individual types of fruits and vegetables, and to do a survey of that.
Perceptions, and part of the value of it is that.
I was just wondering if you're asking those kinds of questions as well. I'm curious.
We're not on our survey.
Oh, okay. Just wondering.
But part of the value of doing it in the classroom with all of their peers is that there's this peer pressure element where if their mom serves it to them at home, they're like, no way, I'm not trying that. But if all their friends are doing it, they're like, oh, okay,
Be cool.
And then they go home and tell their parents, oh, you have to get that. We've had people, teachers who've been in the supermarket and overhearing kids be like, oh, that's the harvest of the month. We have to get bell peppers. So it definitely does change what their perceptions. Okay, so I think that's the main things we wanted to say about evaluation. Any questions about evaluating?
Are the evaluations mostly for the information strictly for you guys, or is it for like, you know, your
Grants.
the people,
Funders.
people who are paying for it, your funders, and
Both. I mean, in this case, this was specifically generated through our grant proposal and for our funders, but you can also use this type of information in an annual report, or, you know, if you have, let's say, a survey that is grant-based, but you're like, oh, I want to ask this question because that's interesting to me, you can sneak it in there. One of our questions you guys will see on your survey if you look through your zip drive is, are farmers cool? And, you know, yes, no, I don't know. And that was when we were getting at, we wanted to know what the perception are. One of it is organic food good? And that was just Malika and I really wanted to know what their perception of organic food is. It has nothing to do with any grant deliverables, but we just thought, well, wouldn't this
And we're
be
not
interesting?
teaching to it.
We're not teaching to it either, but a lot of our farmers that we're
Necessarily.
working with are certified organic. And so it's an interesting question that we want to ask. But mostly it's to please the ones who are asking for this.
Are you using your guide at all to drive or change program? Have you come across where you found that would change the way you're implementing the program? Do you look at your finding?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, you know, we've had measurables in our grant proposals where we just realized, oh, that's not really a good way that's not the important indicator of success. We need to change what we're measuring. Like I said, with the produce stands, we're measuring how much produce we sold, but really a better indicator would be how quickly did it sell out, because that tells us more about whether kids are, wanting it. So I think it's been things like that. We have changed programming more from feedback that we've gotten verbally, and so our liaisons are key to that, and the teachers are key to that. So we get feedback from the liaisons about how it's worked for them, and we get feedback from the principals and the teachers about how it's working for them. And the biggest ones that we got the first couple of years was, we need to know when the produce is coming. Don't tell us the day before, which was about our farm partner being able to communicate that to us in time for us to communicate to the liaisons to communicate to the teachers. So that needed to happen. And then the piece about, we want single serving things that we don't have to cook and we don't have to cut. And
Don't make us cut anything.
So, those are things where we were like, okay, when we sat down with the farm partner the next year, we were like, yeah, melons are great, but we're not going to do them because you have to cut.
So on that end, so you have a nice calendar. Are you revising it already for next year?
So the one we had up there was the 2013, so we're up through December of this year.
And so how do you decide the food items? Okay, not cut, I understand that, but is it any driven by student preference? Is there any student input?
Our criteria is it has to be single serving, it has to be on the harvest of the month, there has to be a newsletter written for it already.
Okay.
And then it's up to the farmer and their crew as to what they, we did peas the first year, we loved it, the kids loved it, it was wonderful, and the farmer was like, we are never doing that again. And so we're not doing peas this year because they were a pain to pick. It's...
But then, we also got peas from a distributor because, the local farmer said, oh, that took me 10 hours to pick, so we got them from the distributor. So there's, and also looking at what's regional too. Like, we've talked about, oh, should we do avocados? Like, that's not super local to us. I'm excited we're going to do persimmons for the first time in December. So we're always kind of looking at what can we get that source the most locally that fits our matrix of things. And in the organizing the HOM document that I put in there, it has all the questions that we ask and kind of the process that we go through in talking to the farmer
What are you comfortable with when you say local? 150 miles, 200 miles? I mean, avocado's obviously Santa Barbara or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Except from Chico.
Yeah, like Marysville.
I mean, we're pretty lucky just in terms of, you know, local, we're in the Red Valley area. So I don't think we've gone more than 150 miles.
You're comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But ideally, you know, we try to go with our local producer that's, you know, 10 miles away. So.
Is that Mountain Valley?
That's Mountain Valley, yeah, so.
But there's only a certain number of months that they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
How do you get the teacher? Are all the teachers on board? When you guys do the harvest of the month and you guys are putting it into each of their classes, are all the teachers, to the most part, on board? Does that make
Well, it's
sense?
interesting because we kind of built it on the model that CAF, Community Alliance for Family Farmers, was doing. They have a whole program of Harvest of the Month in the North Coast region, and the way that they do it is individual teachers sign up for Harvest of the Month. And I think that's how Tahoe and Truckee does it too, is that it's not by school, it's by teacher. And so we kind of went into it thinking, okay, we'll let teachers who want to opt out, but we kind of implied that they could opt out, but we didn't push that too much, and no one has yet. And so now we kind of say, you could not do this, but every other teacher.
It's just like doing the Harvest of the Month tasting.
So we do have, you know, like one school, it's the end of the year, several of the teachers kind of rebelled, and so this year, or this very last one of the month, we're only doing half of the Harvest of the Month for one of the schools, just because we were worried about stuff being left over. But for the most part, they do it, you know, and some of them really take it on, and some of them just pass it out as a snack and move on with their day. So the last thing I wanted to say about evaluation is that kind of the thing that feeds me the most, that I'm always trying to get out of our liaisons, is the stories, because that is, you know, for writing grant proposals, for our annual report, even for the USDA, you know, they want to hear stories, and that's one of the best pieces for evaluation, is to collect those on-the-ground stories of what's happened.
My question earlier was, we actually have a kitchen and we have a chef for our school. Do you have links or any questions in there of how we could work actually cooking the foods? Because we have a different possibility of actually being able to cook. So do you have suggestions on the zip drive, or can I pester you?
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. There's lots of ideas and great models for that, and
okay.
That's not on the zip drive. All right, funding. So I guess I would just like to start out with saying that the majority of funds that fund charitable purposes in this country, 86% come from individual donors. And that's going to be the most sustainable, long-term, effective funding source. And there's a lot of talk about grants, and there's a lot of grants out there for this kind of farm-to-school education, but really where it's at is the individual donors. And so I encourage cultivation of people who can be lifelong supporters of this work. And so we did on this funding your farm to school program document in your zip drive, we have lots of links to places where you can find grants for this. There's a whole slew of different organizations who have compiled farm to school type grants, so that's in there, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. And then I also put in there just, 8 or 10 tips on how to be successful in winning a government grant, because that's kind of a whole other world. But the main thing, I think, is just being creative about the funding sources. So some of the ideas that we've been thinking about is with the farm-to-school liaison, and we'll talk about this more about how you could use this farm-to-school liaison model to support school gardens or to support school food procurement, because I think it's a valuable thing, and they don't need to just be doing the activities that we do, but they could be doing the tastings for the salad bar, they could be, you know, helping run the school garden and taking classes out there. There's lots of different ways. But that's one where I think it's an easy sell to ask the schools to pay for that, especially if it's already a school employee. There's a lot of good models out there for school gardens in particular where the schools find sub time to basically find a sub to be in the classroom while the teacher takes classes out to the garden. And so that could work for your farm-to-school liaison too, where they get sub time to be able to go teach, you know, go on the farm field trip, or they get an extra prep period to be able to set up and take down the produce cart or something like that. And that's something where the employee exists already. You might have a teacher who's already interested in this sort of thing. They're already integrated into the school community, and it can be a really nice flow. Because in our model of having parents, they're having to be the liaison with us, with the farm partner, and with the school. And recently we've had more and more new liaisons who are already employees of the schools, and it's just made it so much easier because they're part of the culture. They know when the staff meeting is and how to get on the agenda, and you know where people's boxes are and having, you know, all those things. That is just a learning curve if you haven't been part of that before. So I think getting the schools to pay for the liaison part, it's just $1,600 or some sub time or an extra prep period, and that's a way to do it. And then the PTA, they're a good place to hit up for some of the extra elements that are the kind of juicy parts of the program that PTAs like to fund, like the farm field trips or the classroom visits, things like that, where they can really see the impact that they've had. It's not a big dollar amount, but they can support it. And we have one school that does that where they said, we want every class to be able to go on a farm field trip. We don't want just
Twice a year.
3rd and 6th grade. And so their PTA raises the money to expand the program to the entire school. And so that's one way. Integrating Harvest of the Month. Harvest of the Month is a really good fit to integrate into the school food service because they're cooking anyway, they're buying produce anyway, and if you have, like it sounds like you do, a food service director who's really on board, it just is a natural fit to integrate that into their budget. And that is one of the most expensive pieces of our program is the, you know, buying the produce for Harvest of the Month and things like that. So if they can do that within their budget, then that's a way to not have to get extra, separate funding for that.
Some schools have student council monies that they can use for that too, which is another different little pile of money.
Yeah.
Or wellness, they do have some little money extra for wellness.
Yeah, wellness, and all schools are now required to have a wellness policy. And so that is something that you can get in on if this fits into them implementing their wellness policy. Then that's a way to say that they should be doing this anyway. If you're like us and we have a superintendent of schools, and that is for many districts, that it would make sense for that department to pay for the funding for the coordinator. They are the ones in charge of all these districts and all these schools. Why don't they pay for the coordination to do this work? And then UCCE, Kevin, maybe you can just briefly say how you guys have worked that, because that's a great model.
Yeah, we partner with the Cooperative Extension, and our Cooperative Extension does a lot of the Harvest of the Month. They get with their SNAP funding, so in the schools that they're working in, they, so all of our food or service members, all the food that he's buying, travel, all that kind of stuff is funded through the Cooperative Extension. They also have a tremendous amount of resources just as far as curriculum. They have nutrition educators that we partner with, so we actually, Valerie, who's in Calaveras, is our nutrition educator, will participate in some of that. She helps with Harvest of the Month and does some different things. It gets a little tricky because with the SNAP Ed funding, if somebody else's SNAP Ed funding is coming from somewhere else, they can't work in the same school. So if there's two, like now our county public health has SNAP Ed funding, so it can get a little tricky. So there has to be some real, especially along those lines, some real collaboration between the agencies to make that, get the most direct services to people. But our Cooperative Extension has been an amazing partner with our school district, and I work with the school district, and so we partner with them for really actively for about 3 years, and it's just been a really good partnership to get those direct services that the schools may not be funding, but it's also developed this awareness within our schools, so we're actually looking at our superintendent wants to fund a position in 15-16 to do this. I mean, he's committed to doing that as we change our funding streams with this whole new local control accountability plans and local control funding formulas. It allows a little bit more control of school districts to determine how they're going to use their money. Not total control, but more control. And so if you can work along those lines, and the Cooperative Extension has been a huge partner with us to lobby for that within our district and bring community on board. And we're really changing, I think, the culture of our school board and those that make these decisions to do exactly what you're talking about. Because it should be, a lot of these things should be funded through the district in partnership with other resources.
Yeah, and there's just, it's, rather than saying, oh, it's this whole big external thing that it costs $10,000, finding the department or the place where it is a natural fit and doesn't have to change their line item, it just becomes part of what they're due, and that to me is, builds long-term sustainability.
And every county has a Cooperative Extension. So ours is actually 4 counties. They cover 4, which is unique. But they all have that, and they've got the Master Gardener programs, and we partner a lot with our Master Gardeners to get additional kind of liaison support with different things, and they play a lot of really neat roles. So they're just a great resource, and depending on the people that are running it, what their focus is, they can be tremendous partners.
Yeah, and beyond the block grant and the USDA Farm to School grant, there are all these agencies, existing agencies that are getting the same federal mandate to do more of this kind of work. So UCCE is one of them, public health is another one. There's a lot of different avenues within public health and kind of mandates that they have that really support this kind of work. And so finding a way to partner with them, for example, our public health department, they have this NEOP, Nutrition, Education, and Obesity Prevention grant, which most public health departments probably have. And part of that is education around nutrition. And so they are required to, particularly with the lower income population of the county, to work and do nutrition education. So we've been able to partner with them to pay for the cooking classes for our Sierra Gardens program, because we're serving a lower income population, and they already have someone who they've hired to teach cooking classes, and we're able to kind of fold that in. So there's different avenues there.
What was the acronym? What was it?
Nutrition, Education, and Obesity Prevention, NEOP.
Along the line of alternative funding partners like Cooperative Extension, in our case, our Harvest of the Month is organized and funded through our hospital districts. So that would be, if you have a small hospital district like we do in Tahoe, that would be another place to go for money. Sure.
Yeah, and then
First 5?
What?
First 5?
First 5, they have, First 5 has a lot of funding for kids' gardens, so that's a way to kind of get garden. Our Sierra Gardens program is modeled off of a few different programs, but one of them in Oakland has partnered with First 5 to put in gardens in all of the preschools in Alameda County. And so that's a potential partnership.
Yeah, they work with preschools. Do you also work with calendars, with those 4 counties? Do you work with Sue Mosbacher?
She's actually doing a master canning program at the middle school I work at. So she's the master, preservative master.
I'm also, so do you also work with the Farm Bureau?
We've done some with the Farm Bureau. I actually know all the people on the Farm Bureau, but we've not done any direct service type stuff. And they've just been, more resources. They funded us to go do some, I think they funded us to go to Ag in the Classroom.
Okay.
So they paid, we
Right.
approached them to help with some funding for some different things.
Yeah.
But as we develop and start doing these more what you guys are starting to do, they'll be great access because all the farmers, be going to their meeting and say, let's connect with these and do this kind of stuff. But yeah, great resource. The farm bureaus are a great resource for all that.
Now, do you find year after year that you're focusing on searching for grants year after year, or are you really relying, or is it starting to kind of sustain itself? Like in a small district like Corso, we're only one school. Are we going to be searching for grants? I don't know how much we would be able to be relying on individual donors. You never know. I don't know. I don't know. But
You can. Believe in that. There are always people out there who have money and want to support this kind of thing. Okay.
What percentage of your funding is individual donor versus?
Do as I say, not as I do. We started these programs with government grants, so this program is entirely funded through CDFA's USDA, but we're really building our individual donor fundraising plan and have been kind of building that and now have individual donors funding some of our other programs, which is great. And this was a 3-year grant through CDFA and 1 year through USDA. What's that?
What year are you in?
We're just starting.
Well, we'll be beginning our 3rd year.
Well, yeah, we're just ending our 2nd year. So once that's up, we're going to have to, raise $100,000 elsewhere for this kind of work. And so that's why I really encourage you to, start building your base of community support for the work, so that, I've just seen too many great programs that rely on government funding die once that funding dries up. And it's a big chunk of money and it's a big boost, but you need to be figuring out what the next step is before you get there. So family foundations are also great because that's usually you never know who who might have a family foundation behind them that can give at a larger level, and those are a great way to go because if you get in with a family foundation, the reporting requirements are really low and they'll usually give to you for a long time. And then I gave you all kinds of links here for looking for foundation grants.
Great, let's
Move it on. Okay.
Taylor the model.
Oh dear. All right, well, let's just open it up to questions. Like we said before, the liaisons could be entirely focused on helping with procurement and school food, or they could be entirely focused on helping run your school garden. You can kind of take the elements that we've put out here and make them work for what you're doing. But we'll just kind of open it up. Any questions or